The days are longer, the calendar is filling up, and I want to feel as good as this beautiful summer weather. That's why I've been loving Groons. It's one daily pack of gummies that covers my greens, vitamins, and minerals, and even has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber. So I don't need to juggle a complicated wellness routine on top of everything else. They taste amazing. They're easy to toss in my bag on the go. Plus, they're vegan, gluten free, and HSA, FSA eligible for reimbursement. Save up to 52% off with promo code podcast at gruns.co. That's code podcast at gruns.co.
And welcome back to Worst Seats in the House. Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta. We're coming to you from Signature Flight Support. As we mentioned on the last pod, we're going to be doing this throughout the playoffs after every game. And Anthony, you know what I learned this morning? Kevin Gorg, very nervous flyer.
You just learned that this morning?
Yeah, because I really don't ever fly with him, right? Because he's always on the charter. But because of the number of people that are on the traveling party in the playoffs, Gorgie, Katie Storm, young Matt, Wes Walls got bumped from the charter. We're on my 6 a.m. flight. And man, he was inspecting the pilots, the flight attendants, making sure everybody looked rested. It was a little nerve-wracking.
Michael, he's a nervous put your socks on guy. Something could go wrong. You never know what could happen. I could get the socks on the wrong feet. There could be a shard of glass in there. I mean, I don't know. You never know. Mm-hmm. And he's also a guy that if you guys had a 6 a.m. flight, I'll guarantee you he was lobbying for the rest of the people to leave the hotel at 3 for the 10-minute Uber ride because he just wants to get there, get hunkered down, just make sure you're there. There is not a thing that guy does that isn't high stress.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you got to experience that.
Yeah. How many games did you play for the Wild? How did Wes Walls get bumped from the charter, but you did not?
Well, I played less than Wes. By however many Wes played. And I guess I didn't even realize, I'm sure I was on some kind of communication that explained all this, but last night as we were walking out of the booth so that Wes and Katie could come in to get ready for the Wild Live postgame show, and Wes said, well, I'll see you Wednesday morning. And I was like, Wednesday morning? What? I thought maybe that meant you didn't want to hang out after the game or something. And he said, no, we all got bumped and we're flying at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. And so I don't know how or why, but I was appreciative that I wasn't bumped. And I had a nice leisurely workout and sauna this morning in Dallas, then got on my 10:30 bus ride for an 11:30 charter, sat in my first class seat and had my couple meal options. It's a nice, relaxing morning, just getting ready for today's Worst Seats in the House show.
Yeah, I did. I had a first class seat too, but man, was I tired. I did write a huge Jake Ottinger feature on that plane ride back. But I got back to the hotel at 1 and had a 3 a.m. wake up. And when you have 2 hours to sleep, you're not sleeping, right? I mean, you're just constantly like, oh my God, is my alarm going to go
Why would you
off?
even go to bed at that time? If I got back at 1 and had to leave at 3, I think I'd have stopped for a bourbon and just gotten in an Uber and gone to the airport.
It's really funny you said that because I actually said to a writer yesterday, I actually hope this game goes into overtime because I wouldn't mind that. Just go right to the airport rather than actually have 2 hours to kill. But let's talk about last night's game, Anthony, and then we'll talk about the access that you and I were both at here at Signature. But Wild lose 4-2, highly competitive game. Both you and I expected a pushback from the Dallas Stars. Isn't it amazing the way two different games could look differently? That's when you realize how off the Dallas Stars were in game one. The low energy, as you said on the last podcast, and last night they came to play, tight checking, physical with the Wild Stars, and it was a highly competitive game from both standpoint, and Dallas figured out a way to win the game.
Well, without a doubt, we both knew that Dallas was going to bring more in game two, and it doesn't mean that the only reason Minnesota won game one was because Dallas was off. Minnesota was also sharp, and Minnesota had managed their rest, and they came in with as much energy as you could have. And I thought Dallas looked flat, but I really thought what was not at all surprising, but interesting was just the way that the Stars room felt on the morning of the game yesterday. And I had talked with Wes going into the series, in fact, and he asked me what I thought. And I said, there's just that Dallas team has got so much playoff experience from the last few years. There is nothing that is going to happen in the early part of this series that they haven't all been through before. And most of them been through it together before. And I think
Especially
that was
game one
evident when,
losses.
right, game one
Yeah.
losses, game one blowout losses, game one heartbreaker losses. They've had them all. Ottinger for a day and a half listening, I'm sure, to questions like, is he the guy? Can he be the guy? The last couple of times he's faced a Wild, he's given up 4 and then 5. And does he look sharp? Is he enough? Yet when you talk to him that morning, and I know you were there with the media scrum, I had a chance to chat with him for 5-6 minutes away from everybody else when he was done. And he was the same exact guy with the same demeanor as he had been when I talked to him the day before the series started. And Jason Robertson's in there joking around with Casey DeSmith, and Mikko Rantanen was all smiles. I mean, it was business as usual for them. And they came out and played the kind of game that I think we'll see now for the rest of the series. And that isn't to say that this was all about Dallas. And if Dallas brings their game, Minnesota can't win, because the game last night could have gone either way. I thought Jake Ottinger was the best player on the ice, and Brock Faber was probably the second best player on the ice. So it was a heavyweight battle. Every inch was contested. And I think we're going to see maybe 5 more games just like that one for the rest of this series.
Yeah, Jesper Wallstedt was fine last night. Jake was great, especially in the first period. Made an unbelievable save on Danilo Yurov, and they scored right after that to make it 1-0. And obviously Faber got a couple goals, but man, he robs Quinn Hughes on right before one of the Faber goals, and Boldy. Probably 3 grade A scoring chances that Jake was up to the task on. Anthony, obviously Matt Zuccarello finished game one with 3 assists. Skated yesterday morning before the game, wasn't feeling well. They say that it was from the Tyler Myers elbow that happened early. We all know that sometimes with head injuries, symptoms come after the fact. I don't know if he's been diagnosed specifically with a concussion, but definitely wasn't feeling right. I don't get the impression that they are thinking that this is going to be that this is a concussion necessarily, that he just isn't feeling well. And so we'll see if he could play on Wednesday night in game 3. Yakov Trenin gets absolutely trucked by Colin Blackwell. Clean shoulder-to-shoulder check. His visor does after the contact hit Yakov in the right around the nose. So we'll see what he's dealing with. But man, that was the definition of a hospital pass from Zach Bogosian.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think Ryan Carter used the phrase last night, a suicide pass, and it put him in a terrible spot and a huge hit, kind of indicative of the way Dallas played the game though last night. I think they sent a message to a few different Wild players, and that was a big one. Trenton had 13 hits in game one, and that was hey, we're here to fight with you tonight. And there were a couple big hits in that game that Jamie Benn delivered where, and I know that for whatever reason, I looked at the stat sheet at one point after he had maybe 3 or 4 what I thought were big hits, and they had him down for 1 hit. So I don't really know who was counting hits last night compared to game one, because in fact, we were going into the third period. Now that game, without a doubt, was more physical than game one. And yet the game one hit totals by far exceeded what we saw last night in game two. So that's why it's such a subjective stat. But the bottom line is, I thought we saw from Jamie Benn what I expected we would see in game one from him, especially once it got upside down. Just a little agitator, little jabs and shoves behind the play sometimes, and not always within the rules, but
how about
most
the
of them go
slew foot
undetected.
on Boldy?
Yeah, I mean, but that's the kind of stuff that, like, and I'm not saying that, oh, great for Jamie Benn, he slew-footed Matt Boldy. I'm saying, but that's the kind of stuff that he just does as an agitator, and if he gets away with it, that can I mean, as long as it's not like he was trying to injure Matt Boldy, but he for sure was trying to send a message to Matt Boldy, and I think that was the case throughout the night last night. And look, I mean, Minnesota's not an innocent bystander in all this stuff either. I mean, there was stuff that their guys do around and after and behind plays too. So I just think both teams last night came with that kind of mindset, and I think we're going to see that the rest of the way. I just thought last night's game, it had the same feel as that game down there last Thursday in the last week of the regular season, where it was just an absolute battle between two teams that know each other really well, have developed a great rivalry, and knew exactly what was on the line in game two.
I really feel the point that you made last podcast, which was a couple days ago, about game one really was probably, I'm again not taking anything from the Wild, but the Wild rested their guys for basically a week. They played Tuesday at home, had Wednesday off. They had to go to Buffalo Wednesday, fly home after the game, take Thursday off, didn't rest their guys. I just think they were low on energy, and I know that, there's no excuse in a playoff game, but these are human beings, and I just think they got their wake-up call in game one, and now we've got a series. Anthony, Matt Boldy, they played him really, really physical, but he still got his scoring chances, and as John Hines just said to us, the Wild don't have soft skill. I mean, Kirill Kaprizov plays in traffic, Matt Boldy does, and they're going to have to continue to do that, Anthony, as this series goes along.
Well, yeah, we've used the phrase so many times with those guys that it's first line skill, fourth line work ethic. And I think that's the case for Kaprizov and Boldy. And, Boldy last night, I think he ended up with like 1.15 expected goals in the game, something like that. He had more than any other player on the Wild and had the lone breakaway, had the tip out front that I think if he's on his forehand, it's probably in the back of the net, but he happened to be on his backhand side.
Isn't it interesting that Faber scored both blocker side and Boldy was denied glove side on his three chances? It almost makes there might be a tell there with Ottinger.
Well, the tell is high. We showed the numbers in the broadcast last night. I think it's almost 70% of the goals he's allowed have been in the upper third of the net this year. He's really good on the low side. Matt Boldy has made his living scoring 5-hole when he's been in alone against goaltenders, and he went away from that on his breakaway, tried to go upstairs, and Ottinger got him with the glove. So we'll see if that plays out. Those are all those little things that are kind of interesting to watch over the course of a series.
Can I ask you an analytics question? Could you explain everybody in layman's terms, again, expected goals? Because I think a lot of times with that one chance that he had in front of the net that was robbed and then the breakaway, you would think that he would right there get 2 expected goals. Like, how does it become 1-1-5?
Well, it's because they take each shot attempt, and over their database of I don't know how many shot attempts are in there now, 1 million probably, and they say, what is the probability that puck is going to go in on that shot from that spot? And regardless of who's taking the shot, it factors in a couple other things, like was there a previous shot within like 1.4 seconds? Did the puck did it travel cross ice? There's a number assigned to every shot. So it's interesting because I actually looked at this specifically to Boldy last night because I thought that number would be a little higher. But then it makes sense when you go back and look at it. The breakaway had a 14% chance of going in. So he gets assigned 0.14 expected goals on that play. And you might think, well, a breakaway, 14%. Well, keep in mind, penalty shots only score at about 20%. And that's with no other speed, no pace, nothing else around you. They're about 20, maybe 22% at the end of the year. So this breakaway in a high speed, high pressure, no time to think about it moment, I would have thought maybe it was 20%, but that was 14. The tip out front was 21%. So for that, he gets assigned 0.21 expected goals. So on those two plays alone, it's 0.35 expected goals. So when you hear a goalie, so Ottinger in those two spots is now 0.35 goal saves above expected. For the game last night, Boldy was, I think it was 1.15 was his total expected goals on all of his shot attempts. And for Ottinger for the night, he was 1.67, I believe, saves above expected last night. And, so all those, there are times where you scratch your head because you think, well, how can that only be a 8% chance to go in? But then when you just step back and say, all right, well, these guys have compiled every shot attempt from that spot over 15 years, it all adds up.
Yeah. You've heard me talk about the Onyx Hunt app on here for years. Well, make sure you download the Onyx Fish app as well, because before you even pull the boat out of the garage, You can sort lakes by species, trophy potential, and keeper potential, so you're not just guessing and you're going out with a plan. You could also use the OnX Fish app to filter walleye, bass, panfish, whatever you're chasing, and see species abundance and size data so you actually know what's in the lake before you launch. Everything you need to get there and get on fish is all in one app. Boat ramps, lake access points, public versus private land, points of interest like bait shops and camping. It's all built into the app. No more scrambling around 3 different apps or outdated reports. OnX Fish gives you the proven fishing area data and local insights that used to take years to learn. So you could do a decade of knowledge all in about 10 minutes. So download OnX Fish on the App Store or visit onxmaps.com/fish. Spring fishing is here. Go find a lake you've been driving past for years and finally find out if it's worth the launch. You've heard me for years talk about my Connecticut water treatment system in my house. Well, many homeowners don't realize how much hard or poor quality water affects your daily life. Issues include cloudy water, bad taste, buildup on fixtures, dry skin, appliance wear, everything. Well, I have your solution, and it's Aquarius Home Services. They are your authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Connecticut systems provide worry-free water throughout your entire home. Systems right now start at $9.95 per month for the first 3 months. It's $9.95 per month for the first 3 months. Their technicians will come to your home and provide a free in-home water quality testing analysis. Aquarius handles everything from your testing to your installation. One call and your problem is solved. You can enjoy spotless dishes, softer clothes, smoother, softer skin and hair, worry-free drinking water right from your faucet. That means no more plastic water bottles, no more water cans, everything. You'll be surprised also how little salt it uses. Visit right now or book your services at AquariusHomeservices.com. That's AquariusHomeservices.com, earning the right to be recommended. That's Aquarius Home Services. And don't forget to tell them that Russo sent you.
Are you looking to move a little easier and feel better day to day? Stretch Lab can help. Stretch Lab is the leader in one-on-one assisted stretching with locations across the Twin Cities. Every session is customized, whether you're chasing a loose puck, grinding through men's league, or just trying to keep up with the game. It's not just recovery, it's mobility, prevention, and performance. Tight hips, sore back, it's all about staying in the game, whatever your game looks like. Don't sit this shift out. Book your first stretch today and feel the difference. Life comes with a lot of things to remember, and Great Clips doesn't think your haircut should be one of them. That's why they use clip notes to save your haircut details, so no matter which stylist you see or Great Clips salon you visit, it's easy to feel like the best version of you. So do yourself a favor. Say goodbye to guesswork and hello to a great haircut every time. Download the app today. Great Clips. It's going to be great.
All right, so now tomorrow, obviously, John Hines, wasn't giving us a lot of updates on or any updates on Zuccarello and Trenyan today. He said he had more information tomorrow. Volstad, he did say, is obviously going to start the game. Let's just say that Zuccarello and Trenyan are out tomorrow. Would you would you go 11-7? I usually don't love it, but the one thing when you have 2 days off Thursday, Friday, and you have 2 days off Monday, Tuesday, it just feels like at home, this could be the opportunity to really, get a ton of ice time for Kaprizov and Boldy. And then knowing that they have 2 off days, Thursday, Friday, that this, if there's no, there might not be another time to go 11-7, that this might be the opportunity rather than putting in a Sturm, a Fabry, a Hunter Haight, something like that.
Yeah. I'd say if both of them are out, possible. If only one's out, the obvious choice is to put Bobby Brink in the lineup and play it that way. I think your point is valid about the schedule. They're going to play one game in 5 days after tomorrow night's game 3, and it's an afternoon game on top of that. So it isn't even like a late night where the next day is lost or anything. It's one afternoon game in 5 days. So Kaprizov and Boldy have proven to be those guys that have the motor that can keep going. It might be a good spot to do that. Obviously the Wild would prefer to go 12-6, and if at least one of those guys is good to go, my guess is you add Brink to the lineup and play the conventional 12-6. It isn't done to get an extra D-man in. I don't see a tremendous value of having both Bogosian and Petrie in your lineup. They play a similar role. They maybe Petrie's length on the penalty kill might be a little factor, but
what about Hunt?
Personally, I think there's a chance we see Hunt before this series is over, especially if Hintz is able to return for Dallas and it becomes a little bit more of a speed game. Now, I know Gulletson said that Hintz was definitely out for game 3. I don't know if he even is going
I
to
don't even
travel here
think
to the
he's
cities.
skating.
He said he was not when he was asked
Yeah.
the day before the series started. He said he had not yet started skating. So that makes it sound like he's maybe further away. But we've seen guys from Minnesota that have been only on the ice for a day or two and then all of a sudden back in the lineup. I don't know Hintz as well as the people in Dallas do, but he did say he's out for game 3. So we'll have to see if he even makes the trip here, and potential is an answer for game 4. And I just bring that up only in that I was thinking about it this morning about potential changes as you go through a series. And if Hintz was to come in the lineup and it became an even faster Dallas team, it wouldn't shock me if you all of a sudden saw Hunt at some point to add just another mobile defenseman for Minnesota.
What did you do in Dallas? I didn't even see you. I on Saturday, the game day, it was pouring there. I dragged Joe Smith and Mark Lazarus, my colleagues, to I got us lost going to Starbucks, so they were making fun of me of that. And on Sunday, this won't shock you, we went out to a steakhouse out in the suburbs that also had a cigar club. And I was the only one smoking cigars, and I made these guys and Dan Rosen from NHL.com spend like 7 hours there watching hockey. So let's put it this way: we all did laundry yesterday because everybody got
and everybody else in the media appreciated that.
Yeah, exactly.
Dallas is one of my favorite cities to visit. I love the uptown area, and I've got a couple spots there I really like that I went back and visited a couple times. Our crew went out to a Tex-Mex place on Sunday night. I had gone down to the Katy Trail Ice House, which is one of my favorite stops on the league. We had sat out there with some of the Wild training staff and equipment staff and sat outside, watched a little hockey, watched some of the golf tournament, and had a couple cocktails early in the evening Sunday, and then went to this Tex-Mex place for dinner. But I've got a little bourbon spot I really like. There's another little neighborhood bar I really like that I stopped and visited. A couple really good sushi places. Actually, the night before the series, I had a great chance. I had dinner with Ralph Strangis, the old Dallas, and he was a Minnesota North Stars radio analyst, and then went to Dallas with the team, became their TV play-by-play guy, and he's another TG Eagle. He was older than me. I didn't know him when we were there, but we've always believed, and I still believe, Totino Gray's got to be the only high school that had 2 play-by-play guys in the NHL for sure simultaneously, but maybe ever. I don't know of another high school that's put 2 into that small number of guys that have held that job. But it was great catching up with Ralph and getting his thoughts on the series. He's going to be following the whole series in both cities because these are kind of his 2 hometown teams, so to speak. So I had a lot of fun down in Dallas. It was, the weather was good, but not spectacular, but always great to get out on the Katy Trail. And I just love kind of bumming around that uptown area.
Well, let's quickly, Anthony, before we wrap up the show, just quickly go through some of the other playoff series. Colorado Avalanche over LA Kings 1-0. I watched that game the other day, man. The LA Kings, they just make it hard to watch a game. Like, that was as boring a game as I've seen.
Played it the only way they can stay competitive, though, and they had zero chance to score. In fact, I was watching the game sitting next to Billy Guerin at the time at the Ice House, and I looked up. I said, "I feel like LA could play this game for a week and a half and not score."
I said the same thing.
And then all of a sudden, they get their one. It's 2-1, and then they had a couple chances at the end where they actually could have tied it.
Vegas, Utah, 1-0. Man, was that a great game. 1-0 Vegas. That was a game where Utah looked like they were going to scare the dickens out of Vegas. And at the end, I think Vegas probably showed their playoff pedigree and experience and figured out a way to win that game.
Yeah, I think it was had a feel to me of a little bit of a big brother, little brother series in that one. Although I will say I thought the same thing about Tampa Montreal, and the little brother won that one in overtime on the road.
Yeah, I felt bad for Jake Gensel. I mean, I know you really shouldn't feel bad, right? It was not a great penalty by him. He sat in the box. He looked sick to his stomach. And then Slafkovsky gets the hat trick. That kid is such a stud. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree. And it's interesting because think about the number of times that we heard that he was a potential bust for the couple of years, and like, oh, what a bad year for the Canadians to get the number one when there wasn't a superstar there, and they never gave up on him, and now all of a sudden, similar to, I'm trying to think of some other guys that were a little bit slower to develop, like, Nico Hischier comes to mind in that year that he and Nolan Patrick were the top 2 picks. And for a long time, people were like, oh, neither one of those guys. Well, Hischier's turned into a really good NHL player. I know Patrick is not, but Slafkovsky might be one of those guys that maybe it took him a year longer than what some people thought before the draft and coming out of the draft. But yeah, he's a superstar, or not a superstar yet, but he's a star right now.
We quipped that we didn't think that Anaheim might win a game in this series with Edmonton. Then next thing you know, they roar back and make it 3-2 with 3 second-period goals. But in the third period, Jason Dickinson ties the game with his second of the game. And with 1:54 left, Kasperi Kapanen scores the winning goal for Edmonton. Connor McDavid didn't have a point in the game, and Anaheim has to be wondering, if you're not going to win a game where McDavid doesn't get a point, how are you going to win a game?
Yeah, I don't think they will win a game in the series. I think that was their chance. It was the first game Edmonton had won all year when McDavid didn't have a point. And I think they'd been 0-12-2 in the games prior to that when he hadn't scored. I think that was their chance. It was kind of totally different, but I feel like a lot of times when you're an underdog, the game where you have the best chance to steal one on the road to start a series is game 1, where you maybe catch a team a little off guard. Game 2, I think you'll see Edmonton put the hammer to those guys. I'm gonna say right now, I think Edmonton scores 6 goals in game 2 of that series.
Okay. Let's quickly go to the East. You already mentioned Tampa Bay and Montreal. Philadelphia Flyers 2-0 over Pittsburgh. Porter Morton looks like a player.
He looks like a budding star, and he made an impact right away when he came into the lineup late in the regular season after Michigan State season was over. Those games haven't been a fluke. I watched about a half of the second game. I watched almost all of the first game. Philadelphia has just been the better team. And Pittsburgh's in trouble right now. The old saying is, you're not in trouble till you lose at home. Well, when you lose 2 in a row at home, then you're really in trouble. And I don't know how Pittsburgh comes back from that. But, those are 2 teams that neither one of them has been a model of consistency over the course of the year. But the one stabilizing thing Philly's had all season has been Dan Vladar, who has had an outstanding season for them in goal, has emerged really out of nowhere to take the reins there. I think originally they were thinking he'd be the backup for Ersan, and instead he's become their best player. I remember talking to their broadcasters when we saw Philly late in the year, and they said he's the only reason why this Philadelphia club is even still in the race, and it isn't close. And he's been good in this series so far.
And final 2 series, real quick, Anthony. Buffalo up 1-0 on Boston. I talked to Ray Ferraro as he was driving from Pittsburgh to Buffalo this morning, and man, that first game, Anthony, Boston looks like they're going to shut out Buffalo in their first home game in 15 playoff years. And next thing you know, Buffalo just comes storming back. Samuelson gets the winner late in the game, and man, was that place mayhem.
It was unbelievable. What an atmosphere in Buffalo. And, that we had talked about some of these series going in, and I pointed to a few of them and just said, think about the energy in those cities with the matchups that you have. Minnesota, Dallas was right near the top, but Buffalo, Boston, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Tampa, Montreal. I just think there's some great first round series. And for Buffalo fans to have Boston in there, and I think I saw a note, it was the first time that a team had been down 2 with 8 minutes left in a playoff game and won in regulation. And not only did they win in regulation, they gave up another goal and still won in regulation. They scored 4 times in the last 8 minutes, and I felt badly for Jeremy Swayman because I thought he had been great up until that point. But the Buffalo Stars really stepped forward. Tage Thompson was great down the stretch, and that series is going to be a fun one to watch.
Yep, and then the last one, Carolina up 2-0 on Ottawa. That looked like a wild. It was going on, as we were going yesterday, so I really basically barely saw it. But it looked like, to me, what a finish. I mean, Martinook, Carolina thinks it scores, It's a league review in overtime to see if it was offsides. It's ruled offside, and then they retroactively award a penalty shot to Martinook. He misses, but yet in double overtime, Martinook gets the winner.
Yeah, that was a crazy rule, and we've talked about this before. I think we had a similar play in a Wild game. It wasn't a penalty shot, but it was a penalty that when there was a penalty in the interim between when the offside happened and when a goal was scored, and then a penalty occurred. And I remember we had talked about it and happened to know the rule because I can't remember if it was a time when we were talking with the officials or if it was one of our seminars with the league, but they said, even though the time goes back to that offside, a penalty is still a penalty. A suspension could still be a suspension. Anything that happens in there is still considered a play that happened. And so that was a bizarre situation where they get the goal taken away, but here your consolation prize is a penalty shot with a chance to win it.
Yep. And one thing we saw in our Wild game for the first time in Wild history yesterday was the Wild challenging a delay a game, and man, it was a tight one. I started to wonder. I'm like, are they going to know that this actually hit that the puck hit the stick and not Faber's stick hit the stick? And they got the call right on review, and that was a tense moment because, as you know, if they get that wrong, it's a 5-on-3 for full 2 minutes for Dallas yesterday.
Yeah, I thought John's answer today was great, where he just said you can't stop playing. You have to just do what you know is right. And even though, yes, we're all sitting there thinking, oh boy, challenge this. If you're wrong, it's 5-on-3. But if you believe you're right, then you have to make the challenge. And the Wild have been perfect this year on challenges so far. Yep. This is the first one that was a missed stoppage, but they've had we talked about it a little bit on our broadcast, and we've talked to John a lot about it over the course of the year with how they prepare for these situations, how closely they study every other challenge and review that happens each day around the league, just so they're educated as much as they can be on what they're overturning, what they're allowing to stand, all of those kind of things, to be as prepared as possible when you have to make that decision fast, spur of the moment in a game.
Yeah, I'm doing a big feature on Eric Johnson for Friday, and who's now an ESPN analyst. And the one thing he noticed on that and pointed out on the telecast that I thought was impressive was that there was that Maverick Bourque has white tape on his blade, and there was a black mark on it. And he noticed that, which is pretty cool.
What are you doing watching the ESPN broadcast when the games are on FanDuel Sports Network?
Well, it was more that I'm trying to figure out, like little anecdotes to throw in this story. Yeah. And he's one of the people, one of the things that I wanted to throw in there was that.
I had a chance to chat with Eric before game one, and he's done a great job jumping in as a broadcaster. That's
what the story's about. It's not easy.
Yeah, he's made the adjustment pretty quickly compared to some of the other ex-players that have jumped in there. Kind of cool to see he and TJ Oshie, both Minnesota guys that have really jumped in and very quickly become good at their job. But I thought, I assume you saw his interview with John Tortorella on the bench. That was one of his early games. And
I talked to Nico Randman yesterday about just what it's like. He said it's hard to take it seriously because he played with him for so long. Same thing with Nathan McKinnon, Jared Bednar, all those guys, and it is impressive because and the one thing that he offers that color analysts can't offer is that he's 20. He is a year removed, not even, from playing with Connor Cal McCarr, Nathan McKinnon against Connor McDavid, and that's something that color analysts usually can't talk about. All right, Anthony, thanks for doing this. We will be coming at you again after Game 3 and Game 4 and Game 5, and as long as this goes in the playoff series. Thanks to our incredible sponsors, our newest sponsor, Great Clips and Stretch Lab, Onyx Hunt. And again, this is the Aquarius Home Services Studio, brought to you by Aquarius. And thanks to Aquarius, your local authorized dealer for Connecticut water treatment systems. Talk to you on, what would that be? Probably Thursday morning, Anthony.
Thursday morning.
So much coming out, there's